All right, welcome back, everyone. So, this is the third installment of our discussion of the Rwandan Genocide in S6 history. In this presentation, I just want to give you some idea about what the international community's response was to the genocide. Okay. Um, the bottom line is that the international community for the most part, did nothing, to intervene during this horrific event that lasted for about 3 months, 100 days. So you see, as early as 1993, there was already this UN peacekeeping operation, which of course included some UN troops. So it was called the UNAMIR, or the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda. This was created in order to help with the transition to the kind of government that was agreed upon in Arusha, Tanzania. Remember, um, a kind of power sharing agreement, a government where Hutus and Tutsis could govern at the same time, share power and govern at the same time. But by April 1994, it was decided by the United Nations Security Council that, this operation, UNAMIR, was to be withdrawn, so taken out of Rwanda. So you can imagine that, this had, the absence of any intervention meant that there was no check on the mass killings that were happening at that time. So even in mid-May 1994, um, so remember that all of this started in April, May, until June, July. This would go on. So as early as mid-May, people knew what was happening. There were reports. There was quite uh, an amount of evidence about what was going on in Rwanda. But you see, and in response to that, the Security Council decided, okay, we can send a larger force, about 5,000 troops. But unfortunately, it took such a long time for this group of UN soldiers to arrive that when they did, the genocide was already over. Um, Late June 1994, the French intervened and they had UN backing. So French soldiers entered Rwanda from Zaire, from the Congo. But then, just because the civil war was going on at the same time as the genocide, so the RPF, remember them, Tutsi-led RPF, they were fighting the Hutus and the official military of Rwanda. So because of the civil war, the French decided that, they would limit themselves to a particular area in the southwest of the country. So they set up a humanitarian zone. They were able to save thousands upon thousands of Tutsis, but at the same time, the French have been accused of helping those responsible for the genocide, meaning Hutus, to escape. Okay, because you have this perception and also accusation because the French were allied with the Hutus at this time. So, after the victory of the Tutsis of the RFP, so the UNAMIR was eventually reinvigorated, okay, and they remained there for a couple more years, and this is this has been the largest humanitarian relief effort in history, in human history. But unfortunately, as a former UN Secretary General has said in an interview, it was a great failure on the part of the international community that, there was very little, almost no intervention. These deaths could have been prevented. The mass killings, the genocide could have been curbed if the international community did more. But unfortunately, he says the failure of Rwanda is 10 times greater than the failure of Yugoslavia, which we will eventually talk about probably. Because in Yugoslavia, the international community was interested, was involved. In Rwanda, nobody was interested. It seems that at this time, people were more concerned about South Africa than Rwanda, even though people were aware of what was happening. A good number of people were brought to justice, fortunately. By October 1994, you have the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal, for Rwanda. So this was located in Tanzania. It was an extension of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia at The Hague. And this one, the latter, the second one, was the first international tribunal since the Nuremberg trials. Okay, since the Nuremberg trials for the Nazi leadership. Okay. By 1995, this tribunal began indicting and trying in court a number of leaders, high-ranking people for the role that they played in the genocide. The process was made difficult because the location, the whereabouts of many of these people were unknown, so their locations were unknown. The trials went on for about 15 years, and even as late as 2008, three former senior Rwandan defense and military officials were convicted. So this is still an ongoing process. You know, the task of rebuilding, of reconciliation, of setting the country on the right path. All of these things are still going on in Rwanda, as you will see in the other videos that I would like you to watch as well. Okay.